Hi everybody, this is Ryan McCoy. I'm with the Real McCoy Group of Coldwell Banker Realty. Today we're going to talk about some of the ongoing costs of homeownership down here at the coast. So a lot of you know property taxes in southern Delaware are a lot better than some of the areas that we're moving from, like New Jersey, New York, Baltimore, DC, all of those areas. Coastal Maryland does have some higher property taxes, but they're still not as high as a lot of those areas. Sussex County was reassessed last year. That did bring a lot of fear into some people that our property taxes were going to shoot through the roof. However, a lot of them did not. Some of them actually went down. Some of them did go up. Some of them went down. Some stayed right about the same. So property taxes are one of those things just to always keep in mind when you're coming to the coast. Even if you purchase a property in cash, you always have to pay your taxes. The IRS doesn't like when you don't pay those. The other thing that we want to talk about is homeowners insurance. So at the beach, some of our premiums are going to be just a little bit higher. We are close to the bays. We're close to the ocean. So a lot of times flood insurance is one of the things that will be required. If you ask for an elevation certificate, sometimes the builders will actually build you out of the flood zone so that you're not required to have flood insurance. However, if you are getting a loan on a property, that lender is going to require you to get flood insurance to keep on the property while you live there. But homeowners insurance does a lot of times come with a little bit of a higher premium here because we are subject to different weather. We do have some nor'easters that come through, so wind and hail coverage is always important to have. And like I said, flood insurance is another thing that can be required. One other thing that we want to talk about is HOA and condo dues. So a lot of areas that people are moving from don't necessarily have high HOAs or condos. Here at the beach, a lot of our communities are amenity filled. So they have pools, tennis courts, pickleball. They're going to take care of sometimes your exterior maintenance. So your roof and your siding, when that needs to be replaced, they're going to go ahead and take care of that for you. However, that's going to come with a higher monthly condo due. When you get into Ocean City, you can see some of them are going to be as high as $1,000 a month. And sometimes in Delaware, you'll see them $400 and $500 a month. We have a couple of communities around here that include things like water, trash, internet sometimes. So it's just be mindful when you're looking in these communities that yes, sometimes you'll see a higher condo due or an HOA due, but they a lot of times include things. So it's just important to be mindful of those. Some other items I want to talk about with ongoing costs here at the beach are maintenance and repairs. So you can have higher maintenance and repair costs here at the beach because of the weather that we have, because of also the salt air. So a lot of times your siding will need to be repainted. You need to power wash maybe a little bit more often. Another thing to be mindful of is your HVAC. Salt air in the HVAC is not always great for it, so just be mindful of that. I always recommend having them serviced at least once a year. I know I do mine twice a year when it gets hot and when it gets cold. Just have the furnace and the air compressor just maintenance by a service technician. Just important things to be mindful of because a lot of times those items are going to break down a little bit quicker. The roof is the other one. Our roofs don't last as long sometimes here because of the wind that we get. Sometimes the weather just gets to them. We typically don't have horrible snowstorms here to worry about, but every now and then we have a couple. I know this year was a little more brutal than other years, but typically they're pretty moderate here in the winter. Utility costs throughout the year, so obviously we have to pay for water, sewer, trash, recycling, electric, all of those bills. So just be mindful of those. They're not exorbitant here. It's not any higher than some of the areas that we're coming from, but just be mindful that those are going to add a couple of $100 a month to your monthly bill. Some more ongoing costs are your transportation and your seasonal costs. So we are a resort town, so in the summer, a lot of times we're going to have to pay for parking. I know we just hit it this year, May 15th, September 15th. Now when we go into the town of Bethany, we have to start paying for our parking. It's just always be mindful of that. I sometimes forget the dates and you go into town, you park, and then you get a parking ticket. And they're not too friendly with the parking tickets here. They do like to give them out, and they aren't the cheapest tickets. So it's important. Just be mindful with where you're parking, that you make sure you pay for parking. Gas, obviously in the summertime, we have a little more traffic, so it's important to be mindful of that as well. Gas prices, I don't know that they necessarily go up in the summer because we have so much activity here, but you're probably using a little bit more gas to get around because of all the traffic. The last item I want to touch on is the rental and investment cost here at the beach. So a lot of times people are coming down, they want to use these as second homes, but they also want to use them as rental properties. It is great to have a rental property here at the beach. However, it's important to know some of the costs that come with that. If you plan to have it managed by a professional management company, they vary in pricing. So they may have a setup fee, they may have an initiation fee, whatever it is, but then they're going to take usually between 10 and 25% of every rental. So if you're renting it for, say, $1,000 a week, they're going to take $250 of that if they're at 25%. Each rental company is going to come with their different benefits, so some of them will take pictures for you, some of them will market the property, some of them will just post them and try to find a renter for you. But it's important when you're analyzing those to remember the costs of having it managed. So within some communities, they're going to require an amenity fee or they may require a rental fee. So that means that in order for your renters to get access to some of the amenities, it's important for you to know that they may charge you, say, $150 per rental for each person to be able to use the amenities. I mean, it can vary based off of the size, too. So if you have 10 renters versus having 2 renters, it can vary. And just making sure that they have access to those amenities, because if they have a pool in the community, you definitely want your renters to be able to use that pool. It's always important to remember that after purchasing a home here at the beach, there are some ongoing costs. Some of them are a little bit higher, but some of them are lower, like the property taxes. Our property taxes are very friendly here, so it's nice to live here and not have to pay an exorbitant amount in property taxes. But always, again, be mindful that we have a transfer tax in Delaware, and that transfer tax is a little bit higher at some other states. So when you're purchasing in Delaware, there's some other costs that come along with it. Just always be mindful of those. Connect yourself with somebody that knows what those costs are going to be and give you an approximate on those so you know what to estimate for.